Hey guys, thanks for dropping by the shop again this week. We are going to today take our hybrid recurve bow and run it out to full draw. So giving a little bit of an insight to next week's video as we start forming out the grip and peaking and tweaking this bow. But this week we coax it all the way to full draw. Get a really nice even tiller and discuss some of the differences in the effects of heat treating and bending limbs versus tempering and what that does as far as the whole tillering process is concerned. So if you guys hang out with me here for a little bit, I will show you how we got this bow tillered to full draw. So starting by stringing this guy up to a pretty decent brace height here, allowing it to kind of settle into its shape. So stringing it and leaving it strung for a half hour, kind of sweating off some compression like I would with any bow build that I do. Have a little bit, just a very slight alignment issue in this, on this recurve where it's just barely out of alignment. I have wedged it between I wedged it in between a couple of these and just horsed it into shape since the we're still learning to bend on this limb. Got it straightened out and am allowing it to settle in now straight. So the real key here when working with a bamboo belly and back for that matter, is to get that all of these initial bends right. It is all in the early stages that we win the tillering game with one of these types of bows. Have done an awful lot of heat treatment in this area to get the shape of this limb to match the shape of this limb. They match, that's what's important. But something we're going to have to really keep an eye on as we move forward is that this stretch has been tempered as a result of heating and bending and doing all those things. So this bamboo right here has been heat treated and tempered, and it's going to be a little bit stiffer than this existing stuff over here. So I may end up having to compensate just by heating and tempering this section of the limb. Not changing the bend on it any, just tempering the bamboo to make it a little stiffer to help counteract what has happened over here to get this side to match. The string is very taut on here, so it gives quite a high-pitched twang for being so many strands of string. I think in my last installment, I think I said I had an 18-strand string on there. I think it's more like 16 strands. I think there's 8 per ply. So, you know, it's rated up to like an 80 or 90 pound bow. That's why it's my tillering string. But if it's got a high pitched twang to it when it's strung, that is a pretty heavy weight bow right there. 30 minutes later, we've got not a whole lot of change. I had measured a little wider gap here than on this one here, and I'm thinking, you know, we'll kind of play that as a positive tiller scenario since these limbs are equal length, and we are going to have to designate a top from the bottom. The bend, I still have a much quicker bend right here than I have over here. And I think what I'm going to do is just kind of progress along the draw. I'm thinking, since this has been heat treated so many times and tempered, that it doesn't want to bend as quickly as, say, this portion, but this has also been tempered. I can encourage a little more bend in this area of this limb by tempering the outer portion of this limb. But before I go doing any of that, I just want to start getting even bending along these limbs and then even the limbs up. So I'm going to get this guy onto the tillering tree and start checking bends, and we will progress forward from there. Hopefully you guys can see the whole bow here in the screen, and you can see that I got a lot of bend here, and I'm just not bending much here at all. Getting really good arc here. Might be bending a little too much in here. I'm not sure just yet. I'm not going to mess with that until I get this stuff straightened out. I think I'm actually going to take on a little bit of traditional tillering with this. I'm not going to do any more heat treat, because the more I heat this and temper it, the less it's going to want to bend willingly. I'm going to go ahead and scrape this with my scraper on the belly side like you would, you know, any wooden bow, and see if I can't affect some of the change there. It's pulling 30 pounds at 16 inches. Even if it only picks up 1 pound per inch of draw beyond that to get to 28, we're talking a 46, 48 pound bow. So we're already well over a 50-pound class bow, because it is not picking up just 1 pound per inch moving on. So when I took it to 18 inches, it was at 35 pounds with 10 inches more to go in draw. So we're dealing with a pretty heavy bow at the moment. All right, guys, so as I am taking material off the belly side here to try and encourage a little more bend, I am simultaneously trying to get a little bit of action on this tip. You can see the string is overlaying to one side, and it is pulling that tip this direction, because when it's strung up normal, it is trying to pull in the wrong direction. And actually we're getting a little bit of corrective action going on, because it's staying pretty straight after having done that. But I'm going to continue to put stress on that to pull it this way, because it was really kind of running the wrong direction for a minute. And yeah, it's kind of starting to come back. You can see it. So that's one other thing that I'm doing simultaneously here, so you can kind of get a flavor for what we're chasing down with this particular bow. So I've been taking a lot of material off, really concentrating the removal right in here. And it's apparent to me in the lighting that it's tough to see, but I can see the discoloration in the bamboo here. This has been heat treated very severely, I guess, if that's the word you want to use for it. The material removal seems to be making a difference on the tillering tree. I'm getting a little better bend through this area, and I think there's a couple of things going on here. Not that I could state with any real certainty, but just in my experience. I think two things are occurring. One, I'm starting to thin the material, which makes it bend. That's you know, tillering 101. But I think I'm also removing some of that tempered hard exterior. So I'm kind of getting a 2-for-1 here. I am getting below some of that tempering, while I'm also thinning the material and kind of buying back that opportunity to do heat corrections if that's what I need to do. As I draw this down the tree, I can feel it. It's starting to take some set, lose some weight as we go down the way. So I don't want to do too much in the way of weight mitigation just yet. I want to get better than halfway to full draw, maybe a little bit more, get in there to the 22, 24 inch range before I start taking that weight as a finished type weight target. We are definitely getting some results from the belly wood removal here. You can see that it is starting to take on a little better bend. On the tillering tree, this just opens right up. It is bending very much. Let's just say very much. I was going to say bending very well, but actually it's not in comparison to now this side. So if you kind of get a look at it, you might be able to pick up the fact that this limb has just opened up on me. Here's a good measure to show how much. We're hitting about 6¼ inches at the greatest depth to the string here. and over here, we're up there at 7. So we have now opened up 3/4 of an inch on this side of the bow. On the tillering tree, you can see this just really bending a lot. So I am going to basically like taking a straight limbed bow and hitting it in the caul like this and trying to stiffen it up a bit. I'm basically going to put it on a flat caul. So I'm going to get it set up on this right here. And we're going to temper this section, try and pull some of this curve out while stiffening up the belly side bend right in here. We want to preserve this because this is what we've been working to get. And by stiffening this up, we should actually augment this bend out here into the outer parts of the limb. It's a really pretty straightforward setup. I am, even with the flat portion of the riser here and already under tension here, and we're just going to heat up this very first third of the limb, and we'll kind of crank this down as it gets a little hotter to help take some of that flex out of there. But the primary function here is to introduce some tempering to this length of limb on the belly so that it resists bending more so than other portions of the limb. All right, so that's really what's going on here, and kind of taking some of that permanent set out of that section, so also bending it back true. There is something that I need to make real clear with regard to the tempering process in a bow like this. We are not trying to induce a bend into this section of limb right here. That is not the intention. The intention is to strengthen or fortify the belly section of this part of the working limb so that it resists the bending more so than it did before the tempering process. So tempering is only heating, the extreme outer surface out here of this limb. We don't want to heat it all the way through. So close contact heat, getting it really nice, cooking it good. You should be able to see some coloration change, probably with bamboo, even smell it, or any other wood for that matter. Be able to smell the heat taking effect. In the example of bamboo, it'll start smelling like hay in the garage. So and when you start getting that, you know that you've got your outer section of the limb cooking hot. And we go ahead and take out some of that bend just to help encourage it to heat up and stay in a straightened state, but on the belly sides. We're not trying to heat all the way through to the back and introduce a permanent bend here. We're just trying to stiffen the section by heating the extreme belly side of the limb. All right, so very important distinction there, where we have done some work in other parts of the limb, like out here, where we're actually trying to bend the entire limb into shape. And that requires heating all the way through. All right, so this is tempering. All right, I am going to start this conversation with the notion that I am not 100% familiar with tillering this style of bow. I feel like I am getting even bends on both limbs now. So this is the one that we tempered right along in this area. I feel like I'm matching here, but the difference being that this limb is just bending more than this one. Now remember, we took after this one with some targeted tillering removal. So we took out material right here to try and increase the bend there. Stiffened this section through tempering, and I think we accomplished that task. However, it just plain looks like this limb is stiffer, just period. And so since the removal of material seemed to have a pretty positive effect here, I'm going to go ahead and do the same here, only I'm going to remove material basically the entire length of the working limb so that I can get it to kind of match the flexibility that's going on this other side. The weight on this bow, it's drawing now to 22 inches as I've gone through the corrections here. At 22 inches, it's weighing in at 37 pounds. So we've got six more inches to go, and if you figure maybe an additional 2 pounds per inch or 3 pounds per inch, let me do some quick math. 6 inches, that's 12 to 18 pounds more from 37. So we're right in that 50 pound class draw weight. So, and that was without doing anything to mitigate the weight. So this is all just compression setting as we draw further and further. All right, guys, hopefully we don't have any issues with the wind coming up and messing this up, the background anyway. But here's how this thing's pulling. At 22 inches, we are at 37 pounds. We'll just keep working this beyond that. Let's see how it goes. Now, I just did some tillering corrections on this limb over here. I'm feeling pretty good about the bend in these two limbs. They seem pretty well even to me. So now it's just a matter of coaxing it to full draw. So we're just at 1 inch or 2 inch increments. We'll just keep working it. Until we get there. So we're at the 22 inch mark. Keep after this. Now I'm getting down there to 24. All the bend seems to be sticking pretty well. At 24 inches, we are at 41 pounds. I'll just keep exercising it at 24, then move on to 26, and then on to 28 like usual. So there's the end of this section. We'll just keep coaxing it to full draw, like I said, and then keep an eye on the alignment of the tips as we move into the final stages of draw length. And we should be pretty much done with this guy. This is straight off the tillering tree from what I was just showing. So drawing 24 inches, maybe 5 or 6 times. Here's the alignment of our tips. So this is the top limb alignment. Seems to be in pretty good shape. And then our bottom limb alignment, which you can see is just barely. It's hard for me to show it. So, get ourselves lined up in the camera view here. Just barely taking off in this direction. All right, and to solve that, you can see it doesn't quite line up with the limb over here either. And so to solve that, we're going to take material off of this side here. We're going to make this knock a little deeper in and just narrow it here. And then on the opposite side that's pretty well lined up, all we'll do is we'll deepen the knocks on both sides a little bit and narrow both edges to match the opposing side. And we are going to be in alignment then moving forward to full draw, because this is pretty much the end of it right here. At 27 inches, this thing weighs in at 47 pounds. You can see the alignment here on this tip, and again on this tip. So we are in alignment. It's drawing 27 inches, like I said, 47 pounds. I'm sure I can, as I'm shooting it in, it'll come to a full 28. But I will tell you, this thing takes on almost a full half circle shape at full draw, to the point where these recurves are actually bending the limb, like closing in on one another. Never ever have I had a piece of wood or a bow bend to the degree that I've got this one bending. Well, I'll get on about wrapping up. You know, I've already thinned out the tips and worked in the nocks, as you saw. They're all lined up, but I will put some, I think I'm going to put some tip overlays on there, fashion a grip on this guy, and when we resume next week, we'll put this through its paces. I'll show you the finished work. We'll shoot it a few times, get a real good look at that full tiller, and get an idea of just how efficient this bow turned out.